Hi, this is Brianna.
And this is Maya.
And we are talking today, continuing our series on Unpacking Words, Resist. This is going to be the third video in our series. And in this video, we actually want to talk about flipping this concept of resist and flipping it to, we've been talking about the resist movement, resisting things happening in the current moment. We've talked about resistance personally in our individual lives. And today we're talking about how actually the external is resisting us. So those of us who are in a state of resistance now, what from the outside is resisting us?
Literally, because you'll see the videos, you all know that we are really into this word. And we have a workshop coming up where we'll get, 8 hours of playing around with this idea and how we move through it. And we're going to talk about that today, about how we move through this concept of resist. But first of all, what do you mean by the external resisting in us? What do you mean by external?
What I mean by that is trying to look a little deeper at how did we get here to this moment? What conditions allowed this context to arise right now? So just in the way that the resist movement is responding to something right now, that which caused the resist movement was a response to something else. So the external meaning, the current conditions, the current political culture.
I sometimes, even on an individual interaction level, not be necessarily listened to in the room or deferred to, or somehow feeling like I have to somehow pull out credentials in order to have the right to speak. I just feel like there's a million examples, just not even being seen or remembered or my name being thought of, just different ways that I feel that external resistance to just my flavor of Maya being on the planet. And that can be kind of disorienting. Is that what you're talking about too, is how it shows up on the individual interactions?
Absolutely. I think that's one way. There's individual and there's collective, and all of them are interrelated. And when I say what the external is resisting in us, why we would want to look at that is to look at what are those gifts, what are the strengths that are in us, that something is getting in the way from us being able to actually bring that into the world. And this actually brings us to the conversation that we're going to be having in our workshop around moving from resist to transform. And how do we take the energy of everything that's happening right now? How do we bring that reflection into who we are and what's being resisted in us, as well as how our relationships are to resistance, and playing with all of it to look at what happens if we take that and we move to action and we move to transformation and we transform that issue. And a part of that is, again, when we recognize what's being resisted in us, either what we're resisting in us or what different external environments are resisting in us as individuals and resisting our own unique flavors of who we are and what we bring to the world, we can embrace those strengths more fully and bring them in a way that we can lead from that place of strength and uniqueness.
I'm smiling because I feel like there's almost a way through it for folks with focusing on that which is resisted the most is probably also the strength. From a leadership perspective, if the thing that you're bumping up against about who you are is being resisted the most powerfully, it might be that that's where your source of strength is the greatest.
Absolutely.
Which is so interesting. And there's also a turning within in that.
Definitely. There's a turning within and there's relating to that which is, again, external in that relationship and that dynamic. And again, as we talked about in the piece around our personal, intimate relationship to resistance and those places that we resist actually being our growth edges and our learning edges, again, if we pay attention to those edges in ourselves and our communities, that's again somewhere where there's something more for us to learn, somewhere where we can grow, and that's also where our strength is.
I like that because you're using your own internal voice as your reference point.
Yeah.
And that's almost the antidote. That challenge, if you're using your own reference point, then you don't even have to use the external to measure your worth or your ability to thrive in the world, and you're not using that to define who you are. So with that said, we are Maya and Brianna with Moxie Lab, and this is the third video in our Resist series on Unpacking Words, and we're just getting started. We've got more to come, so if you're interested in checking out our videos, please click the subscribe button and follow us at that channel or at moxielab.com. Thank you.